On Tech News Today, Tesla's newest car goes from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, but it obeys the speed limit automatically, so you don't have to. Plus, 200,000 Snapchat photos were hacked. Here comes the snapping. And marketers are harvesting your selfies. We'll tell you why. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella learns the meaning of the word karma, and Apple makes the cover of Vogue. Stick around. Tech News Today is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, October 10th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT. And by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan. Jason Howell, how you doing? It's Friday already.
I'm holding it together. I'm holding the ship together. We've got a lot of guests today. So
you said ship. You said you're holding the ship together. Ship. Okay.
With a P.
Good to know.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, here's what's going on with me. My son is getting married tomorrow. My son Kevin. He's a huge TNT and Twit fan. We got a lot of people from out of town here in the audience. They're a rowdy bunch. But,
they're hidden behind Greg. You can't actually see them.
Keep it down, you guys. Just kidding. You don't have to keep it down. So we're going to have quite a wedding tomorrow. It's a big event at our house, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Kevin rented a drone, so he's going to be doing drone photography of his own wedding. So what could go wrong? It
really is the year 2014 when folks are renting drones for their weddings.
Yeah, right, as we speak, he's trying to weaponize it. I don't know why. So that's just how Kevin is. Well, let's jump into the news. Tesla last night unveiled some major new features for its electric sedans. The company's CEO and founder Elon Musk also announced a high-performance version of the Tesla Model S that will have all-wheel drive and go from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. James Temple is a senior editor at Recode and joins us now. Welcome to you, James Temple.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Now, Musk announced a new $120,000 P85D version of the Model S that goes from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. Is that even legal?
Well, apparently it is legal because there are already other cars on the market that go that fast. But they are very, they're considered in the kind of supercar realm, things like Ferraris and so forth. So they're legal, but yeah, you're getting up to the top speeds of what's road legal, I guess.
Now, should people who buy a $120,000 car qualify for taxpayer-funded electric vehicle incentives? What's your opinion?
It's funny. That's not even something I had thought about. I'm not quite sure that's something I want to weigh in on off the top of my head. I'd want to kind of carefully consider what my thoughts are on that before diving in. But it's certainly an interesting question to raise. I mean, I certainly do think that that the government and we as a society have it in our own interest to encourage people to purchase clean energy cars, because it's obviously, getting off of gas and fossil fuels is just and needs to be a high priority for everyone that lives on the earth. So I guess off the top of my head, I'm not super offended by that little addition, but I do understand the point you're making with the market appealing to people at this demographic level.
Yeah. Now, Tesla announced some really cool automation features. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah. I mean, for my money, and maybe it's the fact that I'm not a car guy, but am a tech guy, that was the more interesting stuff last night. There were a number of things that other car manufacturers are already rolling out, like parallel parking assist and assistance, adaptive cruise control, and things like that. But some of the more novel things that they've managed to create are things like the ability to, as the car goes by a highway sign, that says 35 miles an hour, or well, I guess not on the highway, it'd be 50 or 60 or whatever, the car can automatically adjust based on what the speed limit is and how the speed limit changes. And for someone like me who can tend to get a little distracted while I'm driving and in the zone, and that's, the one or two times I've gotten tickets, that was why I just missed that the sign had changed. That could be a pretty cool feature.
Now, what if somebody spray paints a 1 in front of a 55 mile per hour sign? How long will it take the P85D to get to 155?
Well, that I don't know. We know that it takes 3.2 seconds to get to 60. I don't know about how long it takes to get to the very top end. You raise another interesting question there, though. What is the likelihood of someone graffitifying some road signs in ways that could trip up? Was doing this. Now,
is obeying the speed limit optional? Because let's face it, nobody obeys the speed limit. Everybody goes at least 5 or 10 miles per hour over the speed limit.
Well, I think it probably depends on the settings. If you're on autopilot, I think that it's probably going to abide by the spirit and letter of the law, as opposed to a human driver who abides by the spirit of the law plus 10 miles an hour.
Now, as I understand it, a few states have legalized self-driving cars, but they have restrictions, and they're common sense restrictions. For example, there has to be somebody sitting in the driver's seat when self-driving cars are driving around town. Now, Tesla announced a sort of self-driving system for parking, so the car will park itself, and then when you want to drive it, you can summon it, it will come to you, and you get in. Is this kind of like slow-moving self-driving with nobody in the car? Is that legal? Do you know?
Well, I think the point that he was making last night on stage is that you can do that on private property. So once you've sort of pulled into your driveway or apartment complex or something like that, then that's a kind of feature that you might be able to take advantage of if you want to be strictly within the boundaries of the law. I'm not, but I'll also say that, there are big gray areas of the law when it comes to self-driving cars. You mentioned that several states have made a point of legalizing or begun the process of legalizing self-driving cars. But that doesn't mean it's illegal in other states. By default, there are not a lot of laws on the books covering self-driving cars. And so, that's how Google was able to start driving thousands of miles with self-driving cars on California highways, because no one had ever thought to make it illegal.
James Temple is at recode.net, and you can follow him on Twitter at jtemple. Thanks for joining us, James Temple. We'll have to get you on more often.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Well, just a sec, we're going to talk about the latest hack. There's actually a bunch of hacks today, but we're going to tell you about one of them because it's really interesting. But first, I want to tell you about Squarespace. My brother-in-law over here, Doug, is a brilliant programmer and builds brilliant websites, among other things. And if you want to build a brilliant website, you don't have to be a genius like Doug. You can do it yourself using Squarespace. It's a super easy way to do it. You can build a blog. You can build a website to sell whatever it is you're selling. Even if you're just a professional who doesn't have anything to sell and doesn't want to do a blog, you should have a website because, let's face it, you're the brand these days. You're not, your company is no longer the brand. You start with 25 beautiful templates. These are really beautifully designed. You just choose one and then you can customize it. And then, once you've customized it, you can swap out a new template if you like. You can add pages, take things out, do anything you want. It's super easy and flexible. But if you need tech support, of course, it's available 24/7. It starts at just $8 a month, and that includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. And again, every plan level has the ability to take money. So whether you're selling things or just have a nonprofit or wedding registry, Kevin's Wedding is using a Squarespace website for raising money for this, for whatever it is he's going to buy with that stuff. So start a free 2-week trial and no credit card required to start building your website today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT, and that'll get you 10% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. And remember that a better web awaits, and it starts with your new Squarespace website. About 200,000 pictures and videos sent by Snapchat users may have been hacked and stolen. People claiming credit for the theft say they'll soon post the pictures online. 4chan users have already dubbed it the snappening. David Meyer writes for GigOhm and joins us now. Welcome to you, David.
Hi.
And you're joining us from Berlin, and it looks like we have a good Skype connection, so that is a good sign. Now, thumbnails were posted on 4chan as proof of this hack. Is that credible? Do you think this is a pretty believable situation?
Well, certainly the people that I follow in the security community are treating this as credible. I've seen some of the pictures that were posted. They were also posted. Somebody ripped them and posted them to their blog. They were so-called PG-13 pictures, but obviously, given what Snapchat's used for and the demographic we're talking about, we could be talking about very racy pictures of underage people.
And if that is in fact the case, then the people who post these or who stole them, or probably the people who post them, would have to face child pornography charges, wouldn't they?
If they could be identified, certainly. I mean, I've been quite keen to try to talk to the people who are behind the service that was allegedly used to do this. And it's very important to realize that this wasn't a hack of Snapchat systems. It was a hack of a third-party service that recipients of Snapchat pictures could use to save those pictures for repeated viewing. I'd love to talk to these people, but they're understandably anonymous. So it remains to be seen whether they could be tracked down at all.
Now, the service I believe you're referring to is SnapSave. I've also heard reports that there's a second service similarly named called SnapSaved. Don't know about that, but you reported on SnapSave. Now, you mentioned that people would presumably be anonymous. The users of Snapchat would also presumably remain anonymous. The pictures we are promised by the hackers will be searchable through the Snapchat ID. So you put in the Snapchat ID of a person, you get their pictures. I assume, though, that most Snapchat users would use some kind of pseudonym on Snapchat. Is that correct, or do people use their real names? So I think we're going to have to move on because Skype is just not cooperating. It was great for the first few questions, but now it's not really working. I want to thank you for coming on Tech News Today. David Meyer is at gigaohm.com, and you can follow him on Twitter, and you should follow him on Twitter because he's breaking stories all the time at Superglaze. Superglaze is his name on Twitter. Thanks again for joining us, David.
Sure.
An exclusive in the Wall Street Journal this morning says that a new generation of digital marketing companies are searching for and harvesting selfies from sites like Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, and Flickr for marketing purposes. Wall Street Journal reporter Doug MacMillan joins us to talk about it. Welcome to you, Doug.
Hi there.
Now, yeah, I can hear you fine. Now tell us about Ditto Labs and what they're doing with our selfies.
Yeah, so there's this kind of whole world behind when you post a picture to Instagram or Pinterest or Flickr or Tumblr that most users of these sites are not really aware of. They're working with API developer partners like the company you just mentioned, Ditto Labs, who effectively are mining these images to glean insights about consumer behavior. So Ditto Labs uses really high-tech technology called image recognition to go and scan through those photos and to look for things like a Coke can or another brand symbol or a piece of recognizable clothing or a logo to determine things like, what kinds of, if you're eating Kraft macaroni and cheese, what kinds of drinks do you typically eat with that? And they can kind of learn these things through images. And it's pretty remarkable kind of how much these computers can scan and pick up and detect, and how little a lot of users of these sites are aware of this activity.
Now, do you think that people are going to be outraged by this? I mean, when you post a picture and you may have in mind a few friends, maybe a couple of family members, and then a company like this comes along and harvests those pictures for marketing purposes, it sounds like a violation, but really, what's the harm?
Well, I mean, the best defense here that these companies are all telling us is that these are publicly posted photos. And 2014, and most reasonable people now have an expectation that when you post a photo to the internet, especially on these social sites, publicly, that you are posting that to the world and that you are, essentially giving that up for anyone to do with anything. But the question starts arising if there are these third-party companies that are working with Pinterest and Flickr and Instagram and Tumblr, then it behooves those sites to make clear how they're sharing your data with these third parties and what those relationships look like, and what are the policies that they have in place to govern what those companies can do. We kind of spent a lot of time going through their privacy policies, for terms of use, And consistently, there's a lack of clarity around how these relationships work, to what extent Instagram and other sites are able to kind of share this data and share these photos. So, we talked to a lot of privacy experts who suggest that maybe there needs to be kind of a revision of these privacy policies, and maybe, even this could be something that the FTC could look at, because the FTC has in the past taken action against when in situations where companies are admitting the extent of their data sharing practices.
Doug MacMillan is at WSJ.com. That's the Wall Street Journal's website, and you can follow him on Twitter at DMac1. Thanks for joining us, Doug.
Thank you, Mike.
Reed writes, Selena Larson reported yesterday that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella implied that women shouldn't ask for a raise when they feel they're underpaid, but instead should have faith that the system will give them the right raise. Unfortunately, the system has historically been paying women 78 cents on the dollar, so maybe that's not a good idea. Speaking during a live interview on stage at the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing, Nadella also said not asking for a raise is, quote, good karma, and one of the superpowers that women have. Jason, let's have a look at the video.
Of course, the audio is not working. There we go.
And having faith
Okay,
that
let me
the
replay
system
that.
will. It's not really about asking for the raise, but knowing and having faith that the system will actually give you the right raises as you go along. And that, I think, might be one of the additional superpowers that, quite frankly, women who don't ask for a raise have. Because that's good karma. It'll come back. Because somebody is going to know that's the kind of person that I want to trust. That's the kind of person that I want to really give more responsibility to. And in the long-term efficiency, things catch up.
Selena Larson joins us now to talk about her story. Welcome to you, Selena.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Now, Nadella backtracked pretty quickly, right? What did he say on Twitter and also in a letter to Microsoft employees after you called him out?
Yeah, so on Twitter, he posted, I think just possibly a couple hours after the panel, it was soon after my story went live, and he said that it was inarticulate how his response as to how women should ask for a raise. And he said that our industry must close the gender pay gap, so a raise is not needed. But unfortunately, that wasn't the question that Maria had asked him originally. It was more like, if women want to advance but don't feel confident asking for advancement themselves, what can they do? And luckily on stage, Maria replied, what they should do is, educate themselves as to what they think the proper raise is, as well as practice on their peers and friends and other people they feel confident around asking for a raise, and then eventually go to their manager or supervisor and have that conversation about advancement in the company. So after that, in the evening, Satya did release a statement to employees that Microsoft posted on their website that said he proudly supports the Grace Hopper Conference, and what he said was completely wrong. And he did say that he really believes that women should ask for a raise, and they need to be confident and take charge of their their destiny in the company. So he did backtrack a lot on that, and it was a very swift response considering he posted it the evening of the keynote.
Yeah, he's learning a bit about promoting and supporting and managing women. He's also learning something about karma. How does Microsoft compare on diversity numbers with other technology companies?
So like Microsoft, or like all the other tech companies, Microsoft is pretty standard. They lean white male, and especially in the technology portions of the company, they are more male and whiter than but it is pretty standard. I mean, this is industry standard. It's not like they have, it's not that they're less diverse than, say, Google or Facebook. I mean, across the board, they are, all of these tech companies, all of these large corporations, all have some work to do in terms of diversity and bringing more people into the fold. And it was, I think Satya came to this conference to acknowledge that this is a problem that needs to be solved and that Microsoft is working to solve it. And unfortunately, the question that was asked of him wasn't answered appropriately, but I don't think that that's necessarily, I think that might even just be a common response. It's something that, maybe a lot of people don't understand that women don't get raises as often as men. Maybe that is an assumption that CEOs make that, oh, well, this is something that, yes, we should be fixing, but I guess maybe they hope, and I'm sure Satya hopes that in the future, like he said in his tweet, this won't actually be an issue in the future.
Now, I believe Nadella was the first man to headline the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing Will he be the last?
I don't know. There were a few male speakers here. The evening before, actually, there was a controversial Male Allies panel that had a lot of leaders in different technology companies talking about how men can support women, and that turned out to be a little bit of a gaffe. I mean, it seems to be that a lot of these men that are speaking here today aren't necessarily self-aware or really thinking about what their words and actions can have on women. And it's interesting because this is the largest gathering of women technologists in the world. And I would argue that it's one of the most important technology conferences that exists today. And it is in Phoenix, so I know a lot of people might not come out for it if they're in the Bay Area or if they're in San Francisco or New York. But it is probably one of the most important technology conferences. And the fact that these men are on a panel in front of 8,000 women saying things like, oh, well, you should just rely on karma, or just lean in, or trust your confidence. It's very clear to me that there's still a disconnect, and there's still a disconnect there, and there are still people that are not aware of what women truly go through. And that's why I think conferences like this are so important. And I don't know whether Satya will be the last male speaker, but I hope anyway in the future that when men do come to speak at this conference or any conference, they think about how what they're saying affects people, and how and understand what women go through and what other minorities in technology go through in the workplace.
His advice was essentially to lean out, I guess, if you're going to summarize it. Now, of course, this is going to, there's no question that the HBO series Silicon Valley is going to do something like this, because it's just, in a way, it's kind of funny. It's good material for that show. And of course, for those of you unfamiliar with Grace Hopper, she is the legendary computer scientist who was with, I believe, the U.S. Navy. And that's who the conference was named after. Selena, I love the last line in your first piece. You wrote several pieces on this, but at the last line in your original piece, you said, "Karma doesn't pay the bills." It was a really good piece, good reporting, and I really appreciate you coming on Tech News today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Anytime.
All right, thank you. Selena Larson is at readwrite.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Selena Larson. Touch tablets seem like they've been commoditized and genericized, but one company isn't giving up. Lenovo just added a unique feature to its Yoga Tablet 2 Pro, a built-in projector. Dan Ackerman writes at CNET and joins us now to talk about it. Welcome to you, Dan Ackerman.
Hey there, Mike.
Now, is the projector a gimmick, or is it powerful enough to be useful?
Wait, that's a good question. It seems like a gimmick if you take a tablet and you stick a projector in it, just to kind of give you something to differentiate yourself from the crowd. I tried it out briefly on 2 occasions so far. It certainly seems nice enough. They claim you can form a 50-inch projected screen with it. I think you need a pretty light, tight room for that. I just did it on a couple different walls in kind of a half-dark room. I suppose if you want to show your PowerPoint or your vacation pictures or share a YouTube video, you could certainly do that.
So, Dan, is the projector a gimmick, or is it powerful enough to be useful?
I mean, I think it's both. It is a gimmick because you need something to differentiate your tablet these days because they're all so similar. At the same time, I tried it out a couple of times. They say you can send like a 50-inch image up to a wall. You probably need a very light, tight room for that. I tried smaller versions on a couple of different surfaces, a regular wall, a brick wall. It's not super HD, but it seemed fine for sharing like a PowerPoint presentation or photos or like a YouTube video.
If somebody wants to watch TV or YouTube or watch a movie, is the sound up to the task? What do you think?
And obviously, a lot of tablets don't have very powerful speakers. This one has a very kind of rounded, bulbous edge on one side. That's sort of the Yoga tablet style. It's kind of ugly, but it lets you put bigger speakers in. And this larger, this is a 13-inch one. It's got a little subwoofer, a little JBL branded subwoofer. So it's about as good as a decent 13-inch laptop, which to me is not great. But for casual listening, it's better than like an iPad.
And the big question, of course, is what's the difference in battery life between using the projector and not using the projector?
Oh, sure. For a regular, Atom-powered Android tablet like this, you could probably do 15 hours normally. They say with the projector, maybe 3 hours.
Okay. Dan Ackerman is at cnet.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Dan Ackerman. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
As rumored, Symantec announced a plan to split into 2 publicly traded companies. One company will run the storage business, and the other will run the security business. Jeremy Owens writes for the Silicon Valley paper of record, the San Jose Mercury News, and joins us now. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Now, what's Symantec's reason for the split?
Well, they say they want to have the 2 companies be laser focused on what they do. It's really undoing the 2005 acquisition of Veritas, which cost them about $13 billion, that they brought in the storage business. And now they're spinning it out. A lot of people didn't like that acquisition when they made it. I mean, Symantec's worth about $16 billion on Wall Street right now, and they paid $13 billion for the storage company. So, it's that, and they just want to focus right on security. And that's what they'll be doing with Symantec. That'll be the main business, and then they'll just spin off the storage business and maybe look to have somebody else acquire it.
Now, HP and eBay recently announced splits. Is this a big trend in the Valley right now?
Oh, it's a huge trend. Beyond that, Agilent split in two at the end of last year and into this year. JDS Uniphase just introduced a split. And I think what you're seeing is a similar thing happening in both the enterprise and consumer space. If you look at consumers, they're cutting the cord on their cable and cobbling it together with Netflix and Hulu Plus. And in the enterprise, you used to want to have a one-stop shop, especially for software. Look at Oracle. They want to sign contracts and have people have companies sign on with them for all of their software needs. But what companies are doing is saying, okay, well, we're going to get Workday for our HR. We're going to get Salesforce for our database and customer relations management, cobbling together all their software needs from different companies. And so Symantec looks and says, we're not getting this boost from the storage business of people signing on with us for both security and storage. If we split them and we can go with a more laser focus toward this enterprise dollar, then maybe we can improve our growth and our margins.
Jeremy C. Owens writes at SiliconValley.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at JOwens510. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike.
In just a sec, we're going to give you an update on the fabulous world of the Apple Watch. But first, I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. The problem with hiring great people is you can't find them all in one place. They're scattered all over the internet on different job boards and social media. And so how do you do that without spending all your time just trying to find the people and places where you can post your job board? Well, that's what ZipRecruiter does. You post to more than 50 job sites, job boards, and social networks with one click. It's super, super easy. Cast that wide net, and it's really, really fantastic to use because that wide net is going to bring in a lot of candidates who, frankly, aren't qualified. Probably the vast majority are not qualified because everybody's going to be trying to get in on a job they're not really ready to do. So ZipRecruiter will help you by separating the wheat from the chaff. They'll separate the people who actually meet your criteria, and so you can just go through those qualified candidates instead of going through the entire gigantic pile that will come returned to you once you post on ZipRecruiter. Now, find out why ZipRecruiter has been used by more than 250,000 businesses. Right now, Tech News Today fans can try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Well, in an exclusive of sorts, the trade publication Business of Fashion reported that the Apple Watch will be featured on the cover of Vogue China. The watch will be worn by supermodel Liu Wen. Finally, Jason Howell, something the Apple Watch can do that the Android Wear watches cannot do, which is get on the cover of Vogue.
That's true. Apple has that cachet. Although, I think the Moto 360 is a pretty watch for the most part.
You make it look sexy, Jason, but,
you're not even seeing my muscles as I hold this watch up.
You belong on the cover of Android Geeks Today.
Yes, emphasis on the geeks. You're right.
Well, our TNT fan of the day is Adam Versleip in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who said he watches TNT while canning apple cider jelly. This is a daily show. He must have a lot of jelly. That's a nice picture, too. Look at that. It's lovely. Sounds delicious, too. Well, how do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. And use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it. And that is the Tech News Today. Subscribe to Tech News Today on iTunes or many other options. Just go to twit.tv/TNT and choose your favorite way to subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. That's our Twitter name. Join our Google+ community. Just search Google+ for Tech News Today and send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to TNT@twit.tv or call us at 260-TNT Show. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Have a great weekend, everybody, and a preemptive congratulations to Kevin and Nadia. We will see you Monday.